What is going on, everybody? I am back with your Week 16 Seahawks rooting guide. I apologize if my voice is cracking. I've just got over a cold or flu or something. Pushing through it, doing the best I can, but I'm still here to get you guys your videos and give you your updates. I think I'm going to have to switch this and this in my videos because I think you can see the Eagles one way more obviously than the Seahawks one. I'll explain this one more time. My wife is an Eagles fan. Her family is from the Pennsylvania area, so that's why that is there. I am Seahawks through and through, but you know we gotta give the misses a little love too. So that's why that is there, along with my friend Seahawks Snowman here. So let's get into it. Pretty simple. Who do you need to root for the Seahawks in Week 16? First and foremost, this is in regards to playoffs. Seahawks are still technically very much in the playoff race. In fact, if they weren't playing Kansas City this weekend, they were playing, I don't know, a lesser team. Let's say they were playing the Rams this weekend and didn't have to play Kansas City at all. I think most of us actually feel pretty still optimistic about this team's chances. It's just this game against Kansas City makes it look bleak. I apologize if you can hear things in the background. I think my wife is wrapping presents. I think my daughter is rocking out behind this wall to Christmas music. So 'tis the season. So, apologize if you can hear a little background noise, but it is what it is. It's the season, so I'm going to push through it. So this is just for the playoffs, not draft picks. Real quick, if you're rooting for the draft pick, that's fine. You should root for the draft pick. But if you're just focused as the draft, obviously Seattle losing would help their draft pick. A Rams win over the Broncos would help, because not only would it push the Rams away from Denver in terms of getting a win, it would drop Denver down. Pretty simple there. You want Arizona to beat the Bucks, and you would like Chicago to beat Buffalo. Houston is pretty much locked into one. Denver's not catching them. In fact, I don't even think they can at this point. I guess Houston could win out and Denver could lose out. There is still a slim chance. It's not going to happen, though. But anywhere, I'm not as worried about the draft pick. Listen, I'd love Jalen Carter to be a Seahawk. I've mentioned his name several times. Still got Myers, the DN from Clemson. You've got Will Anderson still out there and others. The draft is what you make of the talent. I mean, we've seen teams botch draft picks in the top 5, and they're constantly drafting top 5. We've seen teams that draft in the middle, first round, late, and can make things happen. So I wouldn't get too hung up on that if you're a Seahawks fan. I think the pick will be a top 5, and that alone is a gift. So we don't want to be so greedy here. We'll take a top 5. You told any Seahawks fan before the season they're getting a top 5 pick, you might have said yeah based on Seattle's record, but to get it from Denver is even sweeter. So don't look a gift horse in the mouth of that. Just take the top 5 pick. This is probably the last game Denver can win, in my opinion. So I think they're going 5-12. I hope they lose this week. I think I did pick the Rams to win. But this is probably their last real winnable game on their schedule. They get the Chiefs and the Chargers the next couple weeks. So I do think they finish 5-12, which I think will put them into a top 5 pick more than likely. Maybe even, I think, top 3 or 4. But that's your draft rooting guide. Now let's move into the playoff talk. Obviously, it's actually pretty straightforward what Seattle needs. It could get tricky if we bring the Giants back into this, which we will. I did say last week I think the Giants have pretty much wrapped up a playoff spot. I still believe that, but they've not clinched anything yet, so we will include them in this discussion. But other than that, it's actually pretty straightforward what Seattle needs. I went through and talked about what they need in terms of throughout the season. This is just your Week 16 rooting guide. I keep saying guard. Pretty self-explanatory. If you know anything about football, there's going to be nothing earth-shattering here that I'm going to give you. First game is you want the Seahawks to win. That would be a big boost. If they can go into Kansas City and pull an upset, I truly believe this team will go to the playoffs. I think they can beat the Jets and the Rams the last 2 weeks. I think 10 wins 100% gets you in. If you can get to 10, all you would need is the Commanders to lose one more game. So technically, if Seattle wins Sunday morning, again, and then Washington loses in San Francisco Sunday afternoon, I think you feel pretty confident Seattle's probably going to go to the playoffs. It would be very Seattle sports to beat the Chiefs and then lose to the Rams the last week of the season. But you'd have to feel pretty confident. But that is number one. That would be the best path is for Seattle to win. I still believe win out and you're in. So that's number one. Number two is root for the Vikings over the Giants. Giants' schedule is tough. They go to Minnesota. They do play the Colts, not the toughest game in the world, but the Colts, they've been pesky. I mean, they did hang in with Dallas for 3 quarters, and they were up 33-0 on Minnesota, so they could go in there and upset the Giants. You know, maybe Nick Foles has some 2017 magic left in him, and then the Giants go to Philly. Now, that Philly game could be interesting because Philly could have things locked up, but if the Giants do lose out, there is a chance you can leapfrog them with a couple wins as well. So you'd still want them to drop some games. It still would behoove the Seahawks, for the Giants to lose. This one pains me, but go 49ers at this point. You want the Niners to beat the Commanders. Commanders can only win one more game, essentially, unless you win out. A lot of this I'm kind of assuming in some of my talk that Seattle does lose tomorrow. It's at Kansas City. I can't get too optimistic that they're going to go in there and win. I do think they have a chance, but can't be too optimistic about it. So you really can only have 4 of the Commanders to win maybe one more game. I actually do think they could give the Niners some fits in this one, especially San Francisco coming off the high of winning the division. But you do want the Niners to beat the Commanders. You want the Panthers to beat the Lions. The nice thing with the Lions, and this is where Seattle's hopes still kind of stay alive, Seahawks do have the tiebreaker over Detroit, because Detroit has to finish with a better record as Seattle. So Seattle can find a way to get to 9-8 this year. Detroit just needs to lose one more game. They go at Carolina, home to the Bears, at the Packers. Definitely 3 winnable games, but there's maybe a chance they drop one in there too. So you're rooting for the Panthers to beat Detroit. That would open it up for you as well. If Detroit were to lose to Carolina somehow and Seattle somehow beats Kansas City, you could all but eliminate Detroit from the playoff conversation. I think it might be the opposite that happens, but if that were to happen. I'm trying to think. Go Dolphins over the Packers. If the Packers catch you, you're probably out of it already. But you don't want to get in a scenario where you kind of need Green Bay to beat Detroit maybe the last week, but then Green Bay's won out, and now they're a win and in scenario as well. So you eliminate some of the competition from you as well. So go Miami over the Packers. You could make the argument, yes, it would be better for Green Bay to lose next week to Minnesota, because that wouldn't really work either, because then they're going to be eliminated and they're going to have nothing to play for against Detroit, but you kind of need them eliminated for that game. So it's kind of crazy. But that is your Seahawks Week 16 rooting guide. You're rooting for the Seahawks, Vikings, 49ers, Panthers, and the Dolphins. I'm trying to think if I missed any in there. I mean, you've still got like the Saints and stuff and the Panthers kicking around down there. But I mean, you're kind of at the point of those teams pass you. You're kind of out of it anyways. So that's really the only threat to the wild cards that still remain in this race. If you watch my other video, I go through the whole scenarios of what every team needs. Seattle's probably most likely path to the playoffs, if there is a path, is to beat the Jets and the Rams, finish at 9-8. Lions lose to Green Bay. Washington loses to the Niners and the Cowboys or the Browns, who goes to 8-1. You get in at 9-8 at that point. That's probably your most likely path. I don't think it's an impossible path for the Seahawks. I think they can get in. Even if Seattle loses tomorrow, they will not be eliminated. Let's say the Giants win. Every other team wins and Seattle loses. There is still a path for the Seahawks. You would have Washington, though you would need to lose out, I believe. You'd have to have Washington lose their final 2. And then the Lions would need to lose one more, and you would need to win your next 2. So that would be Washington's 1 win. That would be a bit of a killer if Washington beats San Francisco. But as long as they lose to the Niners, your path is actually still kind of in line. As my dog starts barking, she must be livid that I'm even discussing Seahawks playoff scenarios. But that is your guide. You could make a small case this game that, in a weird way, a win here is more valuable than a loss is deflating, to be honest, because I believe that path of 9-8 is the Seahawks' most likely path, and that is still there, even with a loss. But if you win, it really opens it up where I think we'd almost be thinking this team is in at this point. So I still believe that. I said it last week. If they beat the Niners, I think they're going to get in. I believe it this week. If they beat the Chiefs, I think they're going to be in. They'd be 8-7. Even if those other teams won, I still feel pretty confident Washington drops 1-2, and Seattle gets their final 2 games at home. So they do have a chance, I think, to win those 2. So, and then you wouldn't really have to worry about Detroit because you hold the tiebreaker. So if you get to 10 wins, it doesn't really matter what they do. And then even the Giants, like if they were to lose to Minnesota, they start coming back to you a little bit too, as well. Now Seattle does have a tiebreaker over the Giants, but because of the Giants' tie to Washington, Seattle's tiebreaker is meaningless because they cannot finish with the same record. That's again why that tie stunk. I guess it's better now than had Washington won and they'd split. But looking at it now, it'd been nice if the Giants would have just won that game. Well, no, it'd been nice if, truthfully, it would have been best if Washington swept the Giants because Seattle has that tiebreaker with the Giants. So that would have put them in, actually probably would have put them in the playoffs right now had that been the case. It is what it is. We'll see what happens. If I don't see you guys before then, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, enjoy your time, hopefully with your friends or your family, whoever you have in your life. Enjoy some Saturday and Sunday football. Don't get too stressed about it. It's just a game. If the Seahawks lose, they lose. You know, that's those draft picks make it a little bit nicer. Remember in years past when we've lost these games, we have not had those draft capital fall back on. The Seahawks do have that this year, so the future is bright. And I hope you all have a great holiday. I might see you before then. I'll probably see you guys tomorrow night for a Seahawks post-game recap. It might not be long, but we'll try to get that in there. So until then, everybody take care. Peace.